Thank you very much. Sorry. Right, welcome to the GRAC meeting of Tuesday, the 27th of September 2022. First of all, just before we start, can I ask Alison to introduce herself to the committee because they may not be aware of who you are, please, and what you're doing.
Thank you, Chairman. So I'm Alison Chubbuck, just providing some interim Section 151 support to you until you recruit to your permanent director role.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, first of all, apologies for absence.
We have apologies from Councillor Pierre Boutikofer.
Thank you. Substitute.
Yes, we have Councillor Liz Withington.
Thank you. Any public questions?
None received.
Any urgent business?
None received.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest from any members as seen on the agenda, pages 1 to 5? No, accepted. Thank you. Can we look at the minutes of the meeting of the 14th of June? They're in your agenda, pages 7 to 14. Page 1. Oh, yeah, I can't turn this. Sorry. Page 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, page 8. Anybody any questions? Anything to raise? Can I have a proposer, please? Sorry. So, seconder. Harry. Thank you. You're happy for me to sign these. Thank you. Okay, item 7 on the agenda is EY external audit, the initial audit plan, pages 15 to 30 in your agenda. This is presented by Mark Hodgson. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. Before I turn to the plan in your pack, I thought I would give you a verbal update on the 2019-20 audit, because the last time I came in March, we presented our audit results report, which had the preliminary findings of the audit and talked you through our value for money reporting. And we were hoping to sign and conclude that audit as soon as possible after that. But two things have emerged since then that prohibited us from doing so. Firstly was kind of the Section 151 availability and cover across the March through to May period, and hence why Alison's here this afternoon. And then there was a new emerging issue around infrastructure assets, which came up and is impacting predominantly 2021 and 21-22 audits, but clearly if you have an open audit, you need to consider it and see its impact on that, and there is an impact for infrastructure assets here. But we have now concluded our work on that, and we are hoping to sign on Friday this week. But there's two things I just need to run past you, so as a committee you are aware before John signs up to authorising the accounts alongside Alison. So there are two new corrected errors within the revised accounts upon which the audit opinion will be given. Both are classification audit differences only, but they are above our materiality level. So I'll just give you the highlights. So one is an incorrect classification of the Backton to Walcott sandscaping project. It was classified as an asset under construction when the ownership of the asset reflects that it should be treated as revenue funded from capital under statute. So that classification on the balance sheet has been made, and there's a matching change within the financing for that, and it should be reclassified from tax and non-specific grants to grants credited to services. I know these are words that I'm telling you, and it's hard to convey into a set of accounts, but the rejigging has been done to our satisfaction. And the second one is the presentation of the surplus or deficit on the re-evaluation of available for sale financial assets. And that just needed moving because as a fair value through profit and loss, it should be reflected within the net cost of services and it wasn't, so it is now within the net cost of services. In relation to infrastructure assets, the national issue that emerged was that some councils were not derecognising assets when they were making an addition to an asset. So in my simple scenario, which Sol knows only too well, about a road, if you replace the top of a road, you should have clearly taken out that portion of the road and put it to one side while you replaced it. And a lot of councils are not taking out the asset that has ended its life and replaced with this new asset, and that can cause a material overstatement in the value if both the original and the new added asset are added in together. So here the issue is around coastal sea defences, which is a material number, and we had to do some work with Alison to understand whether you were compliant with the code or not. We have now gained sufficient evidence from Alison and I think engineers in the council to provide a historic understanding of how sea coastal defences are built, and then a new layer is added on top, and then on top, and then on top. So the original asset is never taken away because it forms the foundation, if you like, upon which the coastal sea defence keeps going upwards. So we've now got comfortable with that, but we have added 2 representations in our letter of rep from management and signed by John to say that that is the process, because it is a slight anomaly about how it should be done under the code requirements. However, we are now there and before Alison goes on her holiday, she is providing us with all the documentation so we can conclude and sign on Friday. I thought I'd convey that good news story that we can park 2019-20 before I start talking about 2021. I appreciate that's a lot of information. Happy to take any questions or clarify before I do move on. Perfect. So in that case, the plan in front of you moves seamlessly on from 2019-20 and sets out on pages 19 and 20 of your pack the risks that we have to address. And remember that audit risks are ones that we need to get sufficient audit assurance over to be able to sign the right audit opinion, not necessarily a risk that you are managing per se as a council. So the ones to highlight are the ones that are in red in essence, and they are new risks in respect of 2021. And they're new risks predominantly because they fall out of the impact of COVID-19 and the associated financial reporting requirements of that. So accounting for government grants, significant material grants coming in to the council, they can be accounted in one of 2 ways, depending on the conditions attached to it, and therefore making sure that the right treatment for the right grant is key for this. So that's a new audit risk. And then linking through to bad debt provision and collection fund accounting. Both of those flow from the impact that COVID-19 had on the economy and the ability to recover bad debt balances from debtors and indeed collection fund accounting. The good news for you is that we have downgraded our valuation of property, plant and equipment risk from a significant risk in 2019-20 to an inherent risk in 2021, because we haven't identified any significant valuation issues in the 19-20 audit, and you have stuck with the valuer that you appointed newly in 2019-20. So there's some consistency in the basis. Our materiality figure on page 21 is 1.2 million, which is broadly the same as previous year. And not only am I presenting the plan, but I can also give you an update on how well the audit's going, because we've already started and it's going quite well. We've got about 2 weeks to complete, and having had discussions with Alison, we're looking to do that towards the end of October and into the first week of November, with the view to providing Alison with an audit results report on the 22nd of November, which would then come to your December the 6th meeting, with a view to signing off that set of accounts as soon after the 6th of December as we are able to do so. So hopefully 2 good news stories are underway. But again, happy to take questions on the document because I've given the highlights.
Okay, thank you, Mark, for that. Can I open the floor? Saul, please.
Thank you, Mark. You thought you got away without me referring to our old friend infrastructure assets. So I'm just looking at 2021 and the significant risk there under infrastructure assets. This may have been answered in your last sentence on that section, but I'm just wondering, given what you've just said about sea defences, and we've sorted that, we understand those, and the fact that highways aren't our asset, they're county asset. I'm wondering why that is a significant risk given those two factors.
Good question. So highways was purely my academic model for demonstrating what an infrastructure is and what the accounting issue that we are dealing with was. There is, you are correct, a timing difference here. So we issued this audit plan on the 6th of September, and it was ready to go in July. And at that point in time, we hadn't addressed infrastructure assets in regard to 2019-20. So it was a risk at that point in time. Since the 6th of September and working with Alison, we have right up to today now bottomed out the issue and are comfortable with it, comfortable enough to sign that 19-20 opinion, which de facto means that we have sufficient assurance and therefore the significant risk here in this plan will be lowered to an inherent risk. It will remain a risk though, because CIPFA, as the governing body for all accounting issues in the UK, is likely to issue some additional guidance which councils will need to follow. And if that guidance comes out before we get to sign our audit opinion, we'd need to see what that guidance is and how it would impact you. But we are comfortable that you are as code compliant as you can be in respect of 2019-20. That would equally apply to 2021 if CIPFA don't change the playing field.
So we'll stay red there until we hear from.
So I think it will go down to yellow
Okay.
as of today, but we still need to keep an eye on it until December the 6th.
Any other questions for Mark? No, it doesn't appear to be. Okay, so we are asked as a committee to discuss, report and note the content of Mark's statements. Thank you. Okay, item number 8 on the agenda, progress and follow-up report on the internal audit activity. And this is to Faye, please.
Thank you, Chair. I presented the progress report to you numerous times over the years, and I just want to highlight for this meeting, we've taken the decision to combine both the progress and the follow-up report just to make the agenda flow a little better. So it just makes sense for us to discuss internal audit in one paper. So I'm happy to take any feedback that you might have on the layout of the report once I've presented it. As is usually the case, we highlight any significant changes to the approved internal audit plan at 2.1. And this time there is one there to highlight for accounts payable, which we had scheduled in for Q3. With discussing this particular audit with management, we considered that it would not be the best time to conduct a review of that area due to the new financial system being implemented. We will still commit to providing assurance on that area of control within key controls in Q4, but the in-depth review that we carry out will be deferred to the following year, 23-24. At section 3, we talk about the progress made in delivering the agreed audit work. I'm very pleased to be able to present the executive summary for the piece of work that was scheduled in for Q1 that has now concluded. And the 2 pieces of work that we have in for Q2 are well underway and on track to be provided to you at the next meeting. Now, within Appendix 2, starting on page 68, you may notice that we've got a slightly different layout for our report. We've had a look at our processes and the way that we present our findings, and consider that putting a very clear summary on the first page of all of the issues that we might want to draw to your attention works quite well. So as you can see from here, we've been able to give health and safety, corporate health and safety, a reasonable assurance overall. And we've highlighted the risk there that we were reviewing in the bottom left-hand box. And then on the right-hand side, we've got the key strategic findings. Now, just one important recommendation was raised there, and it relates to ensuring that there is an overall record of inspections. We were able to review evidence to suggest that the inspections were carried out and input into the system used for that purpose, but a schedule brought out that shows the timing of these and when the next one is due, we feel would enhance the control framework there. Then there are some more administrative points around outlining the terms of reference for the health and safety group, making sure that everybody that is required to have the training for health and safety is having the training, making sure that that's tailored so that if enhanced training is needed, it's based on role and that there is a programme for that. And that the outcomes of DSE assessments are also looked at by the health and safety team. We've also raised a point about potentially including some KPIs for health and safety as well, relating to the number of accidents that may have been reported within the period. So that's the final report there and the high level points from that. And then if I take you on to the follow-up recommendations, that starts on page 72. And this is where we provide the committee with all the details of any outstanding audit recommendations within the period. So Appendix 1 gives you that high level overview of what we still have to complete. And then Appendix 4 onwards highlights any that are urgent, important and overdue. And you get given a new revised deadline date there and a latest response from the responsible officer to outline why there is a delay to implementing. On page 75, you've got two there that relate to procurement and contract management. And in preparing for the meeting today, I have noticed an error that I just want to draw to your attention. Our apologies for this, but the second recommendation that relates to reviewing the business continuity plan, you've been provided a comment in there about the finance system upgrades. So that does relate to the prior recommendation, but it doesn't relate to the business continuity plan. But this was an error in pulling the report together, and we do actually have an up-to-date response for that. So I thought I'd highlight that if that's okay. So it's been requested that the recommendation is extended to the 31st of December 2022, and for the reasons that there has been an unprecedented number of incidents requiring coordination and response, including but not limited to 5 named storms, multiple flood alerts, and warnings of severe hot weather. So the team has been prioritising those, and it hasn't been they haven't been available to work on this at this time, but they have reprioritised it and committed to resolving it in time for Christmas. So just to let you know about that. And then, as is usually the case, I normally hand over to the committee members to ask any questions that they may have about those responses provided by management, or indeed the executive summary for the report that we've finalised. Thank you.
Thank you, Faye. Committee, anybody? Christopher, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 73, looking at the first risk there, we have around section 106 agreements. It says the Exacom project is now in progress. It's go live in September 2022. So my question is, has it gone live, given that we're nearly finished with September?
I might need to defer to officers on this one. I knew it was on track, but we might need to get you an update in terms of whether it's fully implemented by the deadline outlined here.
Okay.
As following on from that, I just wondered, Mr. Chair, it might be interesting for this committee actually to see a list of all of section 106 financial awards that are due to be paid out. I don't think that's something I've ever seen as a councillor, but
It would have been reviewed as part of the audit and provided as a request for evidence, but I think we, in terms of adding it to the work programme, would need to defer to officers about whether they would be able to produce the information for the next agenda.
my assumption was that this new system, we could press some buttons and it would flow out the other end quite easily without too much effort. So
Obviously it's not.
not saying that at all. It's just I know that we have had that information for the audit, but in terms of progressing the project and the implementation of the system, you would be right. You know, that's exactly what the system's designed for, in order to draw that information together. But we'll need to take it away.
That'd be a good test for us to see if that's the case. Thank you. Can I have another one, Mr. Chairman? Really, I think it was find the one which I think is probably fairly pertinent for where we are at the moment with regard to the new Serco timetable on page 76. I think it's the second one down. Just to check that's obviously the action there is deferred. Any news on the latest response? Is that in progress? And are you comfortable that will be in place?
This is the latest response that I have
Yeah.
from management, so I don't have anything further, I'm afraid.
Right. I wonder if officers had anything more on that.
Thank you. I'm happy to take that away. In terms of the implementation of the new rounds, detailed consideration was given to the best time to implement that. And so that was after the main holiday period and to avoid bank holidays. So the new rounds went live on the 5th of September. That has involved 90% of households in the district having revised collection dates. That is after many years of the rounds being maintained under the previous arrangement. But over time, obviously, rate of growth, household growth in different parishes varies. And so the new contract did provide the opportunity for Serco to undertake a round review with the intention of delivering better value for money and efficiency in terms of routing, loading and disposal. We chose, or the September was chosen because it avoided the peak weeks of summer and bank holidays, which fell regularly between Easter and the August bank holiday. But obviously in the second fortnightly round, we did have the state funeral of Her Majesty the Queen. And so that has pushed back, introduced an additional bank holiday out of respect. And so that meant people's bins were collected a day later. And for many people, they hadn't become familiar with the revised collection schedule or revised date. So we have had a much larger number than we would normally see in any normal working week of missed bins. The contract manager is in daily, if not twice daily, contact with Serco to resolve those issues. The complaints around missed bins are normally posted directly by customers to Serco, and I don't think their system was robust enough such that we have updated our website with a reporting schedule on our website so that we have control of that data and we are passing that data to Serco. I'm told that as we enter this fourth week and we've caught up from last week's bank holiday, there is a greater degree of certainty or confidence that the number of missed bins will reduce because it's week 3 of the revised rounds. It's been suggested to me that the ones that are missed are in lokes or back lanes where perhaps the crews are not as familiar with the new rounds. And so hopefully as we enter week 4, that familiarity should build. But I'm happy to take away this outstanding recommendation and discuss that with the contract manager so that you have a more up-to-date understanding of both the complaints procedure and the target operating model that I've outlined.
Thank you for that. Christopher, are you content with that?
Well, thank you for that. I think you'll find this is probably week 4. I think, if given to previous discussions that we have had on the subject. I guess we're really looking for some confirmations when it'll all be bedded in. I appreciate there's teething issues whenever you implement a new timetable, but I think these are probably in excess of what we're expecting. As you say, it's probably the nooks and the crannies which are suffering most across the district in terms of that. Do we have any sort of can you give us any confidence that say become week 5 that the new round should be set bedded in. I suppose what I just struggle with this a little bit, and I'm certainly not critical of Serco, because I think overall that they do a very good job. But when you're setting a new round, you think it would go with a map, a route map of where to go, and that probably would include the nooks and the crannies. So.
I don't disagree. As I say, so it's week 4. It's the second week of the fortnightly system. So if you have your green recycling bin emptied in week 1 and your residual black bin in week 2, this is the second fortnightly cycle. So hopefully people are becoming more familiar with the day that they need to put their bin out, and the opportunity for the number of missed bins would be expected to reduce. But it is something that I know the team are reviewing on a daily basis, as I say.
Saul, please.
Thanks, John. So I'm just looking at page 77 and recommendation 3 there. So this is penalty charge notices. And in particular, the fact that we have no way of checking or knowing the income generated by the penalty charge notices. So that, which sounds quite odd to me. So is that we don't know at all what we're getting in, or is it that we don't know that we're getting in the 40%? And if we don't know either of those, can't we just ask Kings Lynn for the data? It just seems strange. We haven't got a clue what actually what we're getting in from those PCNs.
Yes, I think it relates to the 40%. And as you can see from the management comment, they have expressed that actually at this time, they're wanting to accept the risk of that. I'm not sure of the correspondence that they've had with the Borough of Kings Lynn and West Norfolk Council. And you are now, obviously, due to the extension of time, going to be requiring an update on this at every meeting. So I think if we provide a little bit more information around that and ask them actually what consultation has occurred for the next meeting, then hopefully it will help us to understand the situation a bit better.
Yeah, thanks. It doesn't, I mean, if that's a contract, we obviously contract that service out to Kings Lynn. So part of that contract, I would have thought, would be, it's quite simple to say to them, can they provide a figure for what is actually coming back into, 40% of what they're generating in North Norfolk?
It does sound like it should be simple, but I'm sure there's something behind it that's getting in the way. So I think it would be a good idea to outline the root causes of that particular point.
Thank you for that. Any other? Eric, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of observations in terms of the bin collections and Serco. It's been sold now, but I think in my own street in North Horsham, I don't think a bigger mess could have been made when they started. Letters went out saying the collections were going to be on a Monday. That was in fact incorrect. They were Wednesday, but the first set of collections was on the Monday. So I don't know what bigger muddle you could have on that, but it's been solved now. But there are teething troubles when you have these things, but when you're on the receiving end of it, it's not always that funny. The second thing is on the 106 agreements and the new system coming in. I think as Chief Executives here, it would be very helpful if you could be asked to check if that system is coming into place. I only say it because I looked last night at North Walsham, which has had a lot of 106 monies for development in recent years. Something like £170,000 has been received for amenity and leisure items. We've still something like £38,000 to go, which I'm not sure the Town Council is aware of yet. And we've still got, after 18 months of a development project finishing, waiting to receive the Section 106 monies. So just hope the company hasn't gone bankrupt or into liquidation. I have alerted management again to it, but we need to have a system in place which those kind of delays don't actually occur, because I do have to say, when I look around the town and I see some of the completed projects with that Section 106 money, of which some newer play equipment has been installed in the last 2 weeks on a park. These are very valuable improvements to the town, and the money for these kind of projects should not be stuck in the system. It should be open, transparent. Everyone should know, including the town and parish councils concerned. So I just make that comment, Chairman, because I think it's important that you know that that system is up and running, and then we can access it and everybody can see it. Thank you.
Anybody else before I ask a couple of things, please? Can we go back to page 68 on the executive summary? And you highlighted the fact that we have key strategic findings of 5. I think 5 is personally quite damning. How many would it take then for us to have to move from yellow to limited assurance?
Thank you, Chair. On page 7 of the pack, you'll be able to see the action points broken down into grading. So you've got 1 important and 5 needs attention there, and 1 operational effectiveness matters. So because there was quite a few to list there, ordinarily that action point table would want that on the first page, so it was a bit clearer. So apologies for that. But certainly with 1 important recommendation, we wouldn't be looking at a limited overall.
Okay, thank you for that. Can I just, page 73, and it's really just a bit of a request if you could do. We have the number of times that something has been revised, our favourite subject. 4, 4, 5s, we've got 1s, etc., etc. I think as a committee, speaking on their behalf, we can understand that some things do have to be revised. I think 4, I would put at the last time it should be revised. So I would like, if possible, anything that's above 4 to be in red. Red circle, something around it to show us, because I think 4 is possibly acceptable with all that goes on in life. But I think after that, we need to be really finding out why this is happening. Can that be done?
Yes, and I think we've discussed before the possibility of officers attending to give a bit more context around those points as well, if they are overdue of a certain time frame. So I think it would fall into that category. So for next time, and it looks as if this is imminent in any case, but if it's not, then yes, I accept that suggestion, and we will make sure we highlight that going forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Everybody okay with that? Okay, any other questions? Anybody got any other comments for Faye? Okay, well, we are asked to receive and discuss the report that Faye has prepared. Thank you for that. Item number 9 is the Monitoring Officer's Annual Report. Over to Cara Jordan, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members. So this is my annual monitoring officer report for the period April 21 to March 22. Just to make you aware from the outset, there's no actual statutory requirement for the monitoring officer to provide an annual report. So there's no specific information that actually needs to be within this report. I won't go into the content in any great detail, but just to let you know that the first column generally comprises of the duties of my role, either from statute or from the Constitution. And the second column gives information about work undertaken or some information that may be of interest in regard to those duties. I've kept this general template format. I've stuck with this, but in particular in section A, I've provided some information updates in regards to us moving from remote hearings, from remote meetings back to in-person meetings. And I've also given some information that I thought may be of interest to members in regards to the freedom of information governance regime, as it may be of particular interest to see the numbers of requests that we actually get and how we've been dealing with those. Also some updated information in regards to RIPA and my position in regards to RIPA, and to let you know, as you're aware, that the whistleblowing policy has been updated. There's also appendices to my report in regards to the gifts and hospitality sections for members and for employees. And then in section E, there's information in regards to the code of conduct. This council has adopted the new model code of conduct, and I've provided some information relating to the amount of code of conduct complaints we've received in that in the period of this report. So 23 code of conduct complaints. And it's my intention at the next standards committee meeting to go into some more detailed information about the data, the types of complaints that we've received there. But just to summarise, the main reason for complaints continues to be alleged bullying and disrespect of others. There's also a considerable percentage of councillor on councillor complaints rather than a member of the public complaining about a councillor. So I think that's a general overview of the report. As I say, I won't go into great detail, just perhaps mentioning that we will need to be recruiting a new independent person. In fact, we're looking to recruit 2, as our current independent person has reached the end of his tenure. And of interest to members in particular may be the looking forward section at the end of the report, which outlines a few bullet points of things that are coming up in the forthcoming year, including, for example, the intended provision of an online updating facility for registration of member interests rather than handwritten crossings out and putting on the website. And also something that's coming up a little bit later in this meeting, which is the anticipated requirement for an independent member to sit on the GRAC committee. So that's my report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Open to the floor. Anybody wanting to? Christopher, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I can go to page 83 and page 5 of your report, section E says, investigate misconduct in respect of district, parish and town councillors under the code of conduct. In the 2019-2020 external audit, there was a statement made by the auditors: 2 leading members of the incoming administration were central to the selection of the capability review provider, which the investigating officer viewed as being inappropriate due to their role as councillors. May I ask what investigations you've undertaken with regard to the role of those 2 councillors?
Unless there was a code of conduct complaint actually made, and I can't remember there being such a complaint, then there would have been no such investigation.
Perhaps you could then clarify to me what a code of conduct complaint would be, and how would also, I suppose, why would even if it's not a code of conduct, falls within the category of a code of conduct, have you undertaken any investigation into the role of those 2 councillors?
I can't remember exactly the investigations that were conducted during that period. I'll look just one moment. I can't immediately see that there was an investigation in regard to those members. Going back to your earlier question that relates to this, if a person, whether it's a councillor or a member of the public, wishes to make a code of conduct complaint, we have a specific form that we require that person to complete and send to myself in the first instance. As outlined in my monitoring officer report, I undertake an initial assessment, and following that assessment, there's in which I also liaise with the independent person. Following that initial assessment, there's a decision taken whether any further action needs to be taken, such as an investigation. And during that period, I've had a quick look, and I can't see that in regard to the members that you've indicated that there was an investigation relating to that matter.
Mr. Chairman, that surprises me, given that I can't recall councillors ever being mentioned in an external audit report as doing something which, quote, is inappropriate. And I'd have thought if that doesn't warrant investigation by the monitoring officer, I'm not sure what does. So that does surprise me indeed.
Well, as I mentioned, our process is that we have to receive an actual complaint from a person about a member's code of conduct. And from my recollection and having a quick look at my notes here, I don't believe we received such a complaint.
Point. Sorry, are you saying that you wouldn't investigate anything unless it is reported to you for a complaint? Right, thank you.
Well, a formal complaint, obviously, this committee has raised a lot of concerns about that in the past. So I'm surprised as part of that the monitoring officer has not pursued those concerns in terms of that. If it's inappropriate, I mean, if you haven't, you haven't. But I mean, that's something I think we may want to take away and look at again, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions for the monitoring officer? Okay, we are asked to discuss, receive and note the report. Thank you. Item number 10 is the Governance, Risk and Audit Committee's annual report. I think you're doing this, Matt, are you, please?
Yep, so this is a report required of the committee to report to full council on the work of the committee throughout the last municipal year. I'm assuming everyone's read it, just the key points to discuss there, if I can find the report. So we've mentioned the external audit and accounting delays, which I think we are kind of finally starting to catch up on, as you heard from Mark earlier. We're also expecting I think 2021 accounts in December, so where we are hopefully starting to catch up on there. We've also heard from Faye about the outstanding internal audit recommendations. We've heard at length about those today. And then just the last key issue on there to note is relating to the limited assurance grading that was given to all councils within the internal audit consortium, which management have acted to address quickly. I believe that we are looking to review the resources relating to anti-fraud on an annual basis. So I've put that on the work programme for June 2023. So the kind of key points I want to draw everyone's attention to. But other than that, it's just a summary of the work undertaken in the previous year.
Thank you for that. Has anybody got any comment? I have one comment on page 99, item 2.3, and really it's to thank the committee and the substitutes for their commitment in attending this committee meeting. As you can see, we've only ever had one case where we were one member short. I know we're not a big committee, but it's still harder to get those number of people in, and more important in some ways, more important in some ways, that when you've got a smaller committee, you need everybody to participate. So I personally would say thank you for that. Any other comments from Matt? Anything anyone wants to raise? No? Okay, we are asked to consider and concern anything that's been raised within this report.
So you are recommending this report to full council as well?
We'll recommend full council. Need a vote?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay. Want to propose and seconder? Thank you. Can I have a proposer, Harry? Seconder, Peter. Show of hands, please. That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, item number 11.
Sorry,
Sorry.
just on that point, I think because the agenda for the deferred full council meeting is now for the 5th of October, this will come to your November full council meeting. It won't be on the agenda
That's
for
okay.
next Wednesday. So I just thought that point of clarification, please.
That's fine. Okay with that, Matt? So done there. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, agenda item number 11 is the procurement exemption register. Monitoring Officer Cara Jordan, please.
Following an audit recommendation, I bring to you the exemptions on a quarterly basis, and this period, as in the follow-on period from the last time that I reported to you, we've had 3 exemptions, and they're detailed on agenda item 11.
Any questions, anything to raise on that one? Harry, are you just holding your pen, or I'm sorry. That's okay. Okay, we've been asked to action this is to review and note the register. Thank you. Agenda item number 12 is the corporate risk register. Are you taking that, Steve? Or Heather? Steve is. She's pointing to you. So
That's absolutely. I was ably assisted in the compilation of this report by
okay.
Alan Thomas.
We'll leave it with you.
So this is a standard report that outlines the corporate risk register and the risks that we perceive exist to the council's business activities in the context of external influences and circumstances. We review this on a quarterly basis, and it is presented to you today. We at CLT have had robust discussions around the level of risk and where we perceive those risks. Clearly, in terms of the external financial context, there is considerable uncertainty and volatility in the financial markets at the present time, and issues of high levels of or higher than recent time levels of inflation, which will impact on the council's finances and do need a very careful assessment. Although the finance portfolio holder did report to Cabinet in September that compared to many local authorities, our financial health is reasonably strong, such that our investment managers are in close graded us as gold standard, up from the previous silver standard position. The other issues that obviously impact on us in terms of the external situation is around we're now entering the winter period, so we have contingencies in place for emergency and civil contingency response, and the position in terms of the reputation on the council, particularly around issues around nutrient neutrality, are ones which we are seeking to manage with partners at a duty to cooperate level. And again, with the new Prime Minister and ministerial team in government, it is expected there'll be further announcements in respect of that issue, where hopefully greater clarity will be obtained in the coming weeks. I don't know if members have any specific questions they wish to raise in respect of the grades or level of risk that we've identified.
Thank you. Any, Harry, please?
Just to satisfy my curiosity, do we have any exposure to other councils lending? I'm specifically about Thurrock. I noted that other councils have been lending Thurrock money, and that money is now apparently at risk to a certain extent. Do we have any exposure to other councils that might be more dynamic than ourselves, in as much that their exposure is such in this climate as to be dangerous?
I don't believe that we've got any outstanding loans to other councils. We have a long-term arrangement with a housing association provider that has a loan with us and is repaid on time and in accordance with the prepayment schedules. I'm not aware that we've got any loans to other authorities.
Thank you. Anybody, any other question? Christopher, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I go to page 125, please, which looks at a risk? I think it covers the nutrient neutrality in there. I'm just wondering whether there ought to be something in there around the risk that's actually materialised for the Fakenham urban extension. For members who don't know, first part of that is the building of a roundabout on the A148, which is estimated at a cost of 1.8 million. Those estimates have now increased to 2.8, so therefore it hasn't been able to be built as planned over this winter because additional funding needs to be secured for that additional £1 million of spend. And I don't blame anyone for that. It's just about that's just the circumstances of what inflation are at the moment. But the knock-on effect of that is that the Fakenham urban extension is absolutely key to the housing targets and the local plan for this district for many years to come. And if that project is delayed by 1 year, then looking at the way inflation is at the moment, there's a risk potentially that 2.8 will increase further next year. So could potentially add risk to even being built over the next winter period. And roundabouts have to be built over the winter period to avoid the sort of summer traffic. So I just wonder whether that should be included in the risk register and something that we ought to be monitoring as a committee.
I'd be happy to take the action away and identify that as a discrete risk. It isn't delayed because of nutrient neutrality per se. So that scheme has got outline consent and requires the upfront provision of some enabling infrastructure, including the roundabout. The comments that you've subsequently made about the timing and financing of that are correct. But they are constraints or delays for that scheme out with nutrient neutrality. The issue of nutrient neutrality could be addressed or considered in the context of the reserved matters application. So I'm happy for it to be included as a risk, but I wouldn't link it to nutrient neutrality.
I wasn't suggesting it be included.
My apologies.
Yeah, I think it's a separate stands of risk in its own right. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Are you content with that? Okay. Any other issues on this agenda item? Okay, we are the corporate risk register. We are asked to review, report and note the content. Okay, agenda item 13, which is the GRAC update and action list. You're taking that, Matt?
Yeah, happy to. I think I may refer to other officers throughout that. So the first item to update there is a response received following a letter that the Chief Executive sent to the Secretary of State regarding delays in time taken to respond to investigating disclosures. So that letter is there from Jane Hunt MP for everyone to read if they want to, with the original letter behind that to see where it came from. Update 2 was referenced in the monitoring officer report. There is a future expectation and expected piece of legislation to suggest that audit committees will be required to appoint independent people to sit on the committee as observers or independent observers. There is no specific time frame given to the implementation of this legislation yet. However, we're bringing that to your attention at this meeting. It's expected that we will likely prepare a full report for that on the guidance for the December meeting, with a view to appoint ready for the new municipal term starting next year. And the final update, update 3, relates to a recommendation from the committee in relation to a separation of roles on disciplinary hearing matters. So the recommendation that was made there is included, and there is an HR response below which relates to the ACAS requirements and guidance to suggest why that has not been pursued and accepted as a recommendation. So if anyone has any questions on any of those updates, please feel free to ask, and we'll try and answer those between us.
Yeah, just a simple one really, Matt. So the independent member is a voting member of the committee?
It's not, no. They are only observing. I think obviously they can ask questions, but not voting.
So they're not really a member of the committee, they're an observer of the committee.
Yes,
I guess.
yes,
Yeah.
it's a strange. I have attached the guidance. So there's, and let me just find what page the agenda this is on. So on page 143, you've got guidance from the government website following the outcome of the Redmond review, and then below that the SIPFA guidance. They're slightly different, but you can see there from the government guidance what they're suggesting essentially.
I guess I'm just confused by the fact they're calling it an independent member of the committee, which I assume means, you know, it's the members of the committee that are able to vote, but they're not really that. They are observing our function. And then we don't know whether they then report or they comment or whatever. We're not sure.
Yeah, something that Alison might be able to help us with here. I think she did say earlier that that you do have an independent person at your council.
We certainly do at Bretland, and whilst they're on the committee and ask questions and comment on the reports, they're not a voting member.
Just ask a question of the monitoring officer. This independent person for the GRAC committee, we also need an independent person, you're saying, for the standards committee. Can that be the same person?
I'm not sure that they could be the same person, but there is the potential, because we're going out to recruitment shortly for the independent persons for the standards committee, and it's possible that we may get some interest by someone who may be suitable for this committee. I'm not certain at this stage what qualification requirement, if any, the independent member for the audit committee would have to have. And I'm not sure that that's been identified at this stage either.
It's really the point that obviously it's a remunerated post. So obviously if one person can do both, then who knows? Anyway.
Yeah, sorry to labour this point, and we might not have the information yet. But so when you're choosing that person, does our chairman factor into that panel of the selection panel? He will be part of that.
You're talking about the independent member for
this committee. Yeah.
I would have thought that the chair would be sitting on the panel.
I would hope so.
Yes.
Yeah. You're welcome.
So, as chair of standards committee, will I be asked to sit in on any panel for the corresponding independent person?
I would hope so. If you are available, you will certainly be invited to do so.
Is there any other question? Okay, thank you. So we are asked to review, report and note the content of that. Item number 14. Yes, agenda item 14, the GRAC work programme. That's you again, Matt, please.
Yeah, just a few things to note here. Obviously, things have been moved around a fair bit on this work programme, but the key things to note here that in December, we are potentially expecting a draft statement of accounts for 21-22 and a final statement of accounts for 2021. That will be a busy time prepping those reports for the finance team alongside preparing the budget as well, the draft budget. We're also hopefully expecting, and Mark suggests that this is still anticipated to be the case, the external audit results report for 2021 in December. And then beyond that, we were expecting to have the risk management framework updated this year. However, the system we use for the risk management and risk register is in the process of being reviewed, and whether that's going to be the contract renewed. So we are delaying the risk management framework until next year once that contract has been confirmed, I believe. That's everything from me to note on the work programme.
Helen, have you any comment on that contract? Can you update us?
Yes, happily. What's happening with the in-phase piece of kit that we use for many things as well as risk management is that at the moment we're negotiating a 1-year agreement to take us through till next November, and we have a project in place looking at after that period to see what system we replace that with. That would give us a good timing for that, with new administration, new corporate plan, to be able to put the new plan into the new system rather than doing it twice, putting a new plan in, then moving systems. So it is very practical approach, we think, to delay that till next November. And obviously with a new director for resources hopefully being appointed, they will have strong views about what should be in the risk management framework as well. So that we don't want to do abortive work now and then have a new director for resources who wants to change it. So it all seems quite sensible to do that next spring, summer.
Any other comments on that one from? Okay, so thank you for that, Matt. We're just asked to note and review your content. Agenda item 15, exclusion of the press and public. Thank you very much. And agenda 16, we closed the meeting 3:03. The next meeting is the